Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
Conrad, it's Thursday, so it's office hours, and you are on location.
I'm on a search deployment. I can't tell you anything more than that. But the cool thing about this is, like, at any given time, you can be like, hey, because it's all volunteer, I got to roll out and do a thing. So this is the thing I'm rolling out and doing.
Well, we are.
I'm in my search rig too. This is my sweet little. We have some friends who like showing off their cars. This is my 1998 Jeep XJ with a manual transmission that is slower than you can imagine. I keep all my stuff in here. I love this car.
Well, we are grateful that there are people like you out there volunteering to search and rescue people, and hopefully everybody is okay. TBD.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
TBD. We're very much TBD.
So, but thank you for making it to. So this is your commitment to our community.
Yeah,
you are showing up for office hours, and I was thinking we're obviously people that are fans of Lunch Hour Legal Marketing know that we just had the summit last week, and I was trying to think of some of the questions that were asked at the summit that we might be able to answer here, and then I was trying to think of a couple that we didn't really dive as deep on, and one that comes to mind. Give a shout to Mr. Iowa, Tim Semmelroth, who asked, the topic was, I think it was during the CMO panel, and they were talking about how, signing cases up, because there's a huge gap between someone contacts you and then getting them across the line on a retainer. And so a lot of firms have switched to this model where it's like, look, there's a couple basic qualifying criteria that they want to check, but for the most part, they're sign people up, do the investigation, and then decide whether there's going to be a case there or they're going to turn that case down after the investigation. And so from a conversion standpoint, I think that's very wise. Tim brought up, though, that, look, you sign all these people up. Are you delivering a negative experience if they think that you're taking the case, and then a month in, 60 days in, 90 days in, you have to turn them down, and then people go and leave negative reviews, and that's a common theme. In fact, I was just talking about that with a lawyer today, where it's like the only negative reviews we get are the ones where we actually don't take the case.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on that. I will take a higher conversion rate for a couple negative reviews all day long. One.
Yep.
Two, this mindset is currently very personal injury specific. Okay. I think we're talking about PI lawyers. I would honestly love to see this extend a little further into some of the other practice areas, right? And from a pure craven marketing perspective, how quickly are we signing people? And I don't want to go into the ABCs of selling, always be closing, but always be closing like, hey, let's get you into this Ford kind of thing. From a conversion perspective, it's hard for me to push back and be like, this is the right thing to do. Now, does it inherently create negative reviews? And I'm giving you anecdotal perspective based on our conversations with Angel, and based on my conversations with most of my clients who approach it this way. And the answer is very much in the expectation setting. So, like, I think you can, and I'm gonna again erroneously default to personal injury, right? But in the personal injury space, I think it is very fair to be like, hey, let's get a relationship going. We want to start working on your matter as quickly as possible. Let's get signed up, and we're going to make sure once we get into these things that there's something that we can do. If this is an expectation setting thing, I hate the phrase expectation setting, but it really is. If the approach is we want to get working on your stuff as quickly as possible and see and go through a discovery process and see, how things are going. Yeah, I don't have as much of a problem with that.
Well, look at it this way. The real question here is are you increasing the likelihood of them leaving a negative review, turning them down on the first call, or turning them down over the course post the investigation? And my sense of that is, and it goes to your point about expectation setting, that someone that's pissed off that you're not taking their claim is probably not, it doesn't change it a ton for them. And in fact, the thing that we tried to address with Tim is that you got to do the extra legwork on the back end if you do it that way. But the message here is like, look, we spent time investigating your case. We spent time. That's the way this works. Like we wanted to really explore whether we thought there was something here, and there's not. Whereas you turn them down right off the bat, and it's like you didn't even bother. Just another phone call. That's the way that I would.
Right. That's right. And so again, I have only anecdotal support for what I'm going to say here, but the process and the responsiveness and the empathy and the sense of we give a crap during that initial phase, you got to be really good at that, right? Like we're gonna do an amazing job. We're gonna be super responsive. We're gonna put you in front of an articulate, like emotionally intelligent person, and we're gonna work this really hard, really responsively from day one. We turning down the matter, like that could turn into a positive review, to be honest. Like, hey, they went above and beyond on something that didn't turn into anything. I would, again, I can only give you anecdotal concepts on this, but that's the way I would think about it.
Another question, it was kind of a theme of the show, and it was funny because some of the feedback that I heard is like this classic tale, and maybe this is more of a reaction than a specific question, but one of the themes that came up over and over again at the summit is this idea of brand. And despite our best efforts, I think a lot of times when we say brand, what people hear is massive offline media buying. And of course, that's not the way that we think about brand. And maybe I'll give you a chance to talk more about that. But, I just come back to this, like, it's like the focus on the things that you can control. As people say, look, what do I do? Do I compete with these brand builders? And I'm like, it's very, think about the percentage of the legal market that can actually truly compete with national players. We talked about, Morgan talked about how he loses money for 3 years. We've got private equity coming. We've got consolidation of some of these major players. Like the number of firms that can actually play the mere exposure game is pretty small. What do you do if you're not playing that game? Like, how do you build brand that's not that? Or what do Conrad and Guy believe are the ways to build brand that are not just mere exposure effect, mass media buying?
There was I'm going to use one of the speakers. I'm not going to name him, but I'm going to quote his statistics because it shocked me when he said this. And I'd like to go back to him and validate that number wasn't just an off the cuff. But even if he's off by 50%, it's still an amazing number. And I've been thinking about this number because it shocked me. And I think I know the answer. I think the answer is brand. One of our speakers at the summit, who runs a large firm, and it is not just personal injury, it is personal injury plus other things. And I want to say they've got 30 to 40 attorneys. He said, and this goes against what we have been saying in the past, he said that 70% of his business, do you remember this, comes from referrals.
Yep.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Because my off-the-cuff spiel on referrals is this. It's your most effective marketing channel from a cost-effectiveness perspective. If you do a good job, everyone should be marketing on the referral side of things. We did Internet Brands the other day. We quoted, and I don't have the data in front of me, but referral was a big portion of where it was. I think it was one of the top 3 marketing channels that people were getting business from of the Internet Brands group, which there's a sample size problem with that, but not sample size, a sample concentration problem with that. But regardless, referrals are important. Okay, so let me get to the point. How does someone run a large firm with 70% of their business coming from referrals? And I think the answer to that is brand. I've always assumed referrals are going to represent, somewhere between 0 and 10% of your business if you've been around for a long time and you do a great job, blah, blah, blah. So how are these guys doing 70%? And the answer is in what I will call a very comprehensive approach to brand. And there are two components to this. Number one, they are not all things to all people in their market. They have a very, very specific market where they have built a brand affinity. This population likes this firm. They've done an amazing job of that. And the other thing that struck me about this guy, and I only know him and one other person at the firm, but I believe this leads from the top. He cares probably more than almost any other lawyer I've worked with. He cares passionately and deeply about the people that he works for, and it just drips off of this guy. And I would like to believe that filters down to the rest of his firm. That's part of brand. I mean, that is a part of brand that we don't really think about. And so I think the answer to my question to this gentleman, how on earth are you running a large firm and developing 70% of your business, is through brand awareness within a targeted community. And there's an affinity that's been built, not just because of commonality, but also because of his just dripping "I care about you" factor. And so you're not top 3 in your market, you're top 10. That's a magical place to be. Who is the portion of the market that you're going to deeply appeal to, and how do I get that referral business up into the double digits, right? That would be an amazing way to think about things.
So without giving away too much about your example, is this example an offline media buyer?
I believe he is an offline media buyer, but extremely targeted.
Okay. And when you say targeted, you mean geographically and message position?
I mean target market.
Yeah.
They are not appealing to everyone in a large city. There is a segment of the population that they have embraced genuinely, that they represent genuinely, and that's a differentiator, right? It's a massive differentiator. If you're a part of that population, your question in this market, because you know who they are, because they've targeted you from an offline brand perspective, the question is, do I want someone who is like me, or do I want to choose from all the other lawyers, right? And it's a very simple, it's a Harry Beckwith concept. It's a very simple concept where this firm has made someone's decision point. The awareness is high, I believe. The affinity is high, I believe. And so that when someone has a need, the question is not which of these lawyers in my market should I choose? It is, do I want someone like me or someone who's not like me? And that becomes a binary question. If it's binary, and I don't know how that market trends, but I suspect it trends to, I want someone like me who cares about me, right? And people like me.
Totally. And I think the other thing too is that, when we talk about referrals, I think sometimes people get kind of referral myopia, right? They're like, oh, it's like, so let's break down the referral buckets. You've got former clients. And again, I think this is, you and I have talked about this all the time. One of probably the most untapped resources for referral relationships of people who already used your firm and had a great experience and want to sing your praises, but you never stay in touch with them.
Right.
2 is lawyer to lawyer referrals, right? So lawyers, whether you're maybe in the PI context, it's like an out-of-state PI firm that would refer to, another firm and they're not competitive with locally, or maybe it's a criminal defense lawyer who doesn't do PI would refer to a PI and vice versa. Or there's some kind of other, professional lawyer type of referral. The other one is professional service providers that are like tangential. And so my thing is, because I look at a lot of the industry, I can't remember what year it was, but Clio did their research. I always in my head have this loose, you said 10%. I have this loose number in my head of like 50% referrals. And that's like if you're being extremely inclusive, like you're talking about anybody who's referred to you in any way whatsoever.
That's right.
But to your point here is like, this is the part that I think people struggle with. When we say brand, and this came up at the summit, and it's come up in other questions too. Like, again, people think of like billboards, they think of logos, like they think of the marketing collateral, but they're not thinking so much of like the psychological impact. Like brand is really like I think we defined it at the summit as how you make people feel. And you said that in the example that you gave is like, these people feel strongly about this firm because this firm is communicating they feel strongly about the community that they serve. And I think that the reason that so many firms under index on referrals is they're just not investing in that. Delisi was at the summit. Thank you, Delisi. First Call Friday. She's the queen of the referral game. And I just think that she's would disagree with this, but I think so many firms are just underinvested in nurturing the referral relationships. And I don't know if it's again, I think about like you got X number of dollars to spend. And the first place people go is like advertising. And I'm like, think about how harder those dollars would work if you doubled down on existing referral relationships, growing new referral relationships. And there's no doubt that there's an overlap here, right? Because if you're doing offline media buying or advertising in any way, even digital, the people that already know, like, and trust you, they're seeing those ads too, and it's going to make them more likely to refer because they're thinking of you at the key moment when that referral decision is made.
I think the key here, and we should talk about this with Near Media. How can you buy your way into not just know, but like and trust? How can you, like, I think so much, and I'm guilty of this, but so much of our mindset is built around the know part of that.
Right.
Right. And which is fine. Right. So like, here's the brand. I'm going to put the brand, I'm going to the billboard, blah, 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 blah. So much is focused on what we measure this with Near Media, aided brand awareness and unaided brand awareness. But we're talking about awareness. We should add in our next study, and I've got a couple of them filtering up right now. Which of these firms do you like?
Yeah.
Right.
Or you know what I would like? Open-ended response. How does seeing this firm make you feel?
Something like that. Like that would be really fascinating to do, because you're starting from a baseline expectation of Joe Public in the United States just does not like lawyers. I've never told anyone I work with lawyers, and like the person at the bar I'm sitting next to was like, wow, that's so amazing. That must be an amazing experience, right? It's always negative. So you're always starting from somewhere between 0 and minus. And so it would be fascinating to measure how much do people like and trust you. And then it would also be fascinating to have these brand building efforts built around the like and trust component instead of just the know component. And that's where you end up with the referrals going mad. You said this also, referrals are anyone who recommends you. And you're right. And you know this now, and so do I, from watching people actually search for lawyers through the first person Near Media research, that a lot of, or go look at your call rail records, people. Go look at your call rail records and you will see so many instances of my neighbor recommended you because they like you. Like so it's not reaching the end person who's going to call you. It is turning a market into your cheerleaders with like and trust. And if you can play that game, you will start to win, man.
And you just said the other part of this, which is, I think this is the thing that we run into all the time, right? It's the emotional decision. Like people are like, this is why all the ads say, huge verdicts, fight hard, a million years of experience. Like, we know this, but we're the truck accident lawyers. Like, we know truck accidents. And the truth is that a lot of people, varies by market segment, but a lot of people, they can't tell the difference. They don't know who's good, who's not good, who's specialist, who's not specialist. What they know is they're like,
That's right.
oh yeah, this guy knows my neighbor, or this person's in my Rotary Club,
or my mom said, or my neighbor
Right.
said, or the soccer coach said, oh, you should talk to, Janet,
Exactly.
because Janet's awesome. And nobody knows. Keep coming back to this, myself included. Nobody knows if you do good lawyering. Nobody really knows. They just know if they like and trust you. And they fallaciously equate that to you do good lawyering, right?
Yep.
He's a good person. He must do good lawyering. Those two things have nothing in common. Nothing in common. And yet we equate those things because it's the best that we've got to work with.
How do we know this is true? Because many large advertising firms aren't working cases at all. Right? I mean, that's the whole, there's proofs in the pudding. Like, they're generating cases and they don't actually practice law at all.
That's right. Yeah. That's a spectacular example.
I think the other thing too, I think is interesting, and this is a conversation that's come up a lot, is like, and from a positioning standpoint, I think people's instinct is to talk about some of this stuff, and we've talked about this before too, but like the idea of these a lot of these firms that are trying to do volume, they're not really working the cases. They might be telling you don't have a case when they didn't really do any investigation. I think it might be too nuanced of a market position, but I think that it's worth considering as part of your positioning, depending on your market, because I think a lot of people have these experiences. I think a lot of people, they call up a law, they think of a law firm, or they see a billboard, or someone refers them, and they call the firm up, and the firm's like, yeah, no case. And, and other lawyers, historically, lawyers have been reluctant to market to folks in that way because they're worried that they're just going to generate a bunch of calls for people who really actually don't have cases. But I don't know. I think the landscape's changing.
Well, we have this, I can't remember. Oh, maybe we recorded this yesterday. How do you get, oh yeah, we were making fun of the internet brand study. There were people complaining about they want more qualified leads. And how do you do that with fewer leads overall? They want to concentrate. No, it's not a thing. You want to find a bunch of really good cases, go talk to a bunch of really bad cases. That's sorry, that's how it works, right? But again, even for those things where you don't have a case, you can deliver amazing customer service on there. And if your mindset is, I'm just going to filter these people out as efficiently as possible, you're going to end up with bad reviews. They will feel that. And it also changes the culture of your firm. If you view your intake people as gatekeepers instead of first impression people, like it changes the perspective of how we think about things.
Well, and this is the whole thing, to take it all the way full circle. Those people that otherwise might have been like, you got to talk to Janet, they're going to be like, don't talk to Janet. She doesn't answer her phone. I couldn't get a hold of her. I felt like another number at her. My mom told me never call Janet because she's awful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Good stuff. What else we got? Any other questions you could recall that really stuck with you from the sun? I mean, and grateful for everybody in the community, because they were so, we put a fishbowl out there and people just filled it up with the questions, and it really made for a better, I thought, overall experience.
That was a brilliant Jessica idea and very obvious, but having the fishbowl at the registration desk to ask us questions was great.
I think this is another thing, and I don't know that there's a right answer, and I know we try to address some of it at the summit. I think it's an ongoing thing, but there's this question of like, we'll talk about in the context of brand, non-brand, and referral and stuff, but like, you got a budget. How do you make decisions about like more into brand, more into direct response, more into referrals? How do you think about deploying resources, and what metrics or signals are you using to make those decisions?
I answered this. I'm going to stick with my answer here.
I liked your answer, by the way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an MBA answer to this question by people who never have actually worked in a business.
Right.
And then there's people who've actually run a business. I will give you the people who run a business answer. And it is a cash flow problem. And cash is king. Like, that is a very, very true thing. So my bias here, Guy, and it's hard to make this anything other than somewhat theoretical, but I want to maximize. I want to know what my acceptable cost per acquisition number is, right? And if I'm in a growing firm, as we talked about this summit, if I'm a growing firm, that number has to be higher than if I'm not in a growing firm, okay? Because that's just how these things work. Having said that, you have a cash reality, and so I would put as much of my budget as I possibly can into acquiring actual paying customers, because that is going to generate cash in the next 0 to 18 months that I can then put into brand or more direct response stuff. The cycle that you want to be careful about is, well, sorry. And then I would put everything else that I want to put into marketing into long-term brand building. Okay. And the reason I prioritize direct response is if your marketing budget is low, you're not really in a long-term growth plan anyway, as a percentage of your budget. And it becomes this cycle I just need to continue to work through. But if it's high, I want to get as much cash into my business so I can pour more fuel into that flywheel of growth. And that's kind of my overall mindset. It's simplistic, but like, that's how I would approach it.
So it makes sense, but let's talk about being like in the trenches with like real law firms here. So theoretically agree, I don't have any reviews, right? Because when I think direct response, I'm thinking LSAs, I'm thinking pay-per-click. And then also so the reviews is the one thing that I want you to talk about. And then the second thing is, isn't there like a minimum? I mean, and we shouldn't limit it to Google Ads. You can do direct response on Meta and other platforms, but I just think, search has got intent. Bottom of the, we're performance marketers, bottom of the funnel, high intent, non-brand queries. Like, that's what I think of when I think of short-term direct response. But I got the issue of reviews. And don't you think there's kind of a threshold budget you got to spend to even play in that game? I mean, I got $1,000 a month. Can I do Google Ads for $1,000 a month?
No.
Right.
No, not at all.
So where do you play there?
I mean, we'll make fun of internet brands. Is my audio still coming across okay?
So it's in and out, but you're all right.
Okay. We made fun of internet brands yesterday. I'm going to do it again right now. In their survey, 400 law firms with less than 20 lawyers.
We're losing you. We're losing you. I don't know if you can do anything about it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me just plug in.
Save that thought for next time.
Hold on.
This is the trade-off for live broadcast, but it's worth it.
That's right.
It's the real deal. We'll give you a minute. I'll sing some. Maybe I can play some music or some sound effects.
Or I can drop out and try and come back in.
You can try.
All right, I've got power running to this now. Is that any better?
Nope. Way worse.
So I'm gonna drop and come back in, okay?
All right, we'll give you 1 minute. I'll answer my own question while we wait for Conrad. I think you got to find. So I generally agree. I think that especially early on, realistically, you need to put cases in the pipeline today. You've got to be thinking demand capture. You're thinking direct response. Your initial thoughts are going to be things like Google Ads, high intent search ads, local services ads. You're quickly going to realize like, oh, it's very hard to compete here because I don't have a competitive number of reviews, which were relevant to both of those contexts. And then you're going to start saying, well, I can try to do direct response on Meta and some other places. And maybe your economics, your cost per case works on those platforms. Conrad's back. JK, he's not. And so you're gonna have to try to find other spaces, other surfaces that you can actually do direct response. My big thing, the way that I answered the question, which was slightly different than Conrad's, was I think you want to be planting the short-term and long-term seeds like from as soon as you possibly can. And so, if you twisted my arm, if you're startup / early growth, you're just going to throw some numbers out that are arbitrary, but I think it'll drive home the point. 80% direct response, 20% call it brand, but really it's going to be networking. It's going to be working on investing in referral relationships. It's going to be maybe it's doing some of the local event marketing and sponsorships and things like that. But I'm very leery today of putting all your eggs in the direct response basket, considering the cost per acquisition continues to go through the roof. And really, you need some budget. You need a startup budget for Google Ads. Like, it's tough. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to, because again, it's not really the you can try to play in some spaces where your cost per clicks, like maybe it's lower middle funnel, maybe more exploratory. We've heard there were some creative ideas at the summit about keyword spaces that you might explore that are not as high cost. But realistically, if you're early on, you just don't have the budget to invest in those non-brand high intent places. That's why the cost is so high. It continues to get driven up.
And we're back.
You're back.
Better?
Sound great.
You can always just turn the thing off and turn it back on. That's the ultimate tech hack, and it worked.
Reset. So I'll frame it up for you. So
go ahead.
You're saying, look, if the economics work, fill that pipeline now, direct response, put as much budget as you can in. I said, well, when I think direct response, I think LSAs, search ads, you got a review issue. And then on top of it, I'm early on, I don't have a huge marketing budget. My marketing budget is, I got $1,000 a month. Can I play in those high intent direct response spaces?
No, the answer is no. You're also not in a growth oriented firm if you have $1,000 a month to put into your marketing. That's just a fact. The internet brands, I was going to make fun of them again, which I'll take a chance to do. The internet brand survey that came out with lawyers in firms of 20 or fewer lawyers, less than 20 lawyers. What was the number? 81% of them or 71% of them spend less than $10,000 a month on marketing. That's the cohort that you're talking about. If you are in that position where you're dropping $1,000 a month on marketing,
take people to dinner.
Do that. I mean, your only game is the referral game. It really is. And I mean, I can tell you this. I took some people to dinner the other day, and $1,000 didn't cut it, right? I mean, do amazing work, get great reviews, ask for them. Pay your staff $100 per review, like that. Sorry, you have $1,000. That's what I would do. I would make sure that I delivered amazing service, and I would ask my staff to get a positive review, and I would pay them $100 per review, even though that's against Google's guidelines.
Right, I was going to bring that up, but again, I think for tactically speaking, I think it's a good point to make, because it's easy for us to say all this stuff and to have our formulas and talk about benchmarking against the industry. But at the end of the day, there are, if you're early on in the process, a lot of this stuff is kind of off the table for you. And I think this is part of the story of why lawyers get frustrated, because they're like, I spent some money on this stuff and it didn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, again, there are minimum thresholds to marketing. And again, let me put this in a little bit nicer fashion. Everyone should put their first dollars towards the most cost-effective marketing channels, and you should move up the funnel of expensive, right? And expensive looks like pay-per-click. It looks like in many cases SEO. It looks like in many cases LSAs. There are lots of other things that you can do with that marketing dollar first, and every firm should, and not all firms should be running pay-per-click, because not all firms want to get to 20% of the market from a market share perspective. But if you do want to be that 20%, 30% market share, which would be really, really difficult, you have to play every single freaking channel, and you have to make the economics work in those most expensive channels.
And unless you've got anything else with that, I think we call it. We'll let you get back to searching and rescuing.
I will get back to searching and rescuing. It's been nice. It's hot, man. So it was nice to hide in the shade in my car for 30 minutes. Thanks for spending some time with me.
Thanks for spending the time with us. And for folks that just happened to stumble across this on the socials, this is the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Office Hours. We do this most Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, as long as we're not searching and rescuing people.
Do we give people advance notice when we're not going to show up?
We try. We don't do a great job of that. We don't do a great job of telling people that we are going to show up either.
That's
but
true.
Here we are. If you do have questions or if you've got comments, we'd love to hear from you. These really go a lot better, as you might suspect, if we have actual questions to answer. Till next time, Conrad and Guy, Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.